go to the filters menu and down to colours and then procedural texture in Affinity Photo, and you get this panel. Now obviously I'm not going to create again this equation, but here's the equation. I'm going to zoom in so you can see the equation. It's made up of some OSC sin and also some smooth OS, obviously things that trip off the tongue. But what you've also got, you've got these custom inputs. Now to create the equation initially, simply click the plus and then you can just add that equation into that. Make certain that R, G and B are all set on, and also set A, B, C and D as parameters via this R. Just click there with the R. And so once you've got that, you've got 0.2, 3, 12, etc. And you can vary those, of course. You can turn that around to say, well, I want that to be 1. And you can see the result of that. Also, thing is, you notice there, RX and RY means you can move it around. So if you don't want the position where it is at the moment, you can always reposition it to create this really quite intense design. However, that's just a starting point. One of the more useful bits, which probably is not going to be immediately obvious, what you can do is you can modify this, RX, RY. Simply just go and change it to RX, say minus RY. And straight away you do that, creates this nice like diagonal effect. You can also do the same again. You can just go RX plus RY. And you get obviously going that way. What you can also do is maybe times RY. Though the result obviously a bit more extreme, but whenever you get something like that, you can always generally say, oh, you know what, let's just divide by 100. So instead of just sort of, obviously, because you've multiplied it, just try and reduce it down a bit again by maybe 300. And you can always create a parameter as well down here, a custom input for that as well. So again, 300 there, and you can see the result. It's a quite an intense design, and you can still continue to vary these. So if you want, say 5 there, or maybe go for 2 there, and it will, just depending on the function here, will result in different designs. And maybe if you don't want it so intense, maybe go for, say 5. They've got a multiplication there. So that D times smooth. I'm just changing D down to 5, but you can make it very intense. Go for 30 or 40, and you can make it really intense, which is actually too intense. But you can also continue to modify this. So you can look at this RX times RY. Well, I'm not going to go with that, but I'm just going to say RX maybe divided by RY. So you could divide it. And then, of course, you might then think, well, let's just put, say, 10 times in front of that. So you can just multiply it up. Maybe 10 didn't work, maybe 100. So you can get a different response just by that. Then you see you've got RX divided by RY. Well, you can always put RX, put a bracket around it, key thing, bracket around that, RX, and then minus RY, and then bracket around that. So you've got that. And then that makes it diagonal again. It's always quite nice when you've got RX minus RY, nice diagonal sort of effects, or RX plus RY, full diagonal. And you can do the same on the other side. I've got RY there, maybe go for minus RX. And you can see you can introduce some variation there. And also, say minus RX, maybe put a multiplier times 10. So not just RX, but 10 times the RX. And you can still continue to move this around. Now, if you want sort of circular designs, another option here would be to go here with, and I'm going to go back to what it was, default. Let's just go for just there. And I'm just going to get rid of that 100. RX, RY. That's all it was. RX, RY. Just to put it back to the default. And then what you can do, maybe go say RX times RX plus RY times RY. Now, obviously that's going to, it creates a circular effect, and quite an intense circular effect. You can see as you move that around, you can see some very interesting distortions there. But what you can also do, you can turn around and say, well, I don't want that. I want to reduce it down a bit. So I'm just going to square root. So SQRT, and then bracket around that, and then bracket around that. Make sure you put the bracket around the right place. And now I've got a bracket around there, and you can see now you've got a circular effect around that. And also you can, of course, you can always copy and paste, and quite often I do that. So just copy that. Be careful when you copy it. Sometimes it's obviously a bit tricky to copy it. And if I miss a comma, I can always replace that, because it won't work. There, I missed a comma. Bracket there. So you get a nice circular effect. So you can see the result then of that. And of course you can still vary this. So you can turn around and say, well, I've got a square root there. Maybe put times 10 around the Rx. You can compress it. Maybe instead of Rx there, you can put bracket Rx and then minus Ry bracket. And of course creates a nice diagonal effect. And of course you can do the same for the other one there. Rx minus Ry there. And you can see what happens. You get just all kinds of diagonal effects that way and of course you can still continue to move it around, and you can still vary these functions as well. I haven't touched these ones. You could of course put Rx into these as well if you want to do that, but the key bit is this section here, I think, where you can just modify it in numerous ways to create all kinds of very unique designs like that. Well, hope you found this of interest. Thank you much.